The cold water shocked Elena Hernandez's system as it cascaded down her face, soaking her maintenance uniform and pooling at her feet on the freshly mopped floor. She stood frozen, droplets clinging to her eyelashes, as the man before her, Director of Operations Victor Reynolds, smirked with cruel satisfaction. "Now you have something real to clean," he said, his voice eerily calm as he dropped the empty cup beside her. "And remember your place here. You're nothing but a cleaner." What Victor didn't know was that the woman he had just humiliated wasn't simply a member of the night cleaning staff. The hands now red and raw from industrial cleaners had once signed multi-million-dollar contracts. The eyes now downcast to hide their fury had stared down boardroom opponents across negotiation tables. The woman he saw as nothing was, in fact, Elena Hernandez, Harvard MBA, Executive Vice President, and daughter of Javier Hernandez, founder of Hernandez Innovation Technologies. And she was taking careful notes on everything. Javier Hernandez had built HIT from nothing, a Mexican immigrant who arrived with little more than determination and a brilliant mind for technology. Starting in a rented garage with borrowed money, he had transformed his vision into a tech empire now valued at over $7 billion. His silver-streaked hair and the deep lines around his eyes spoke to decades of challenges overcome, barriers broken, and prejudices confronted and defeated. But the heart attack 6 months ago had changed everything. "You need to reduce your stress immediately," the cardiologist had instructed, her expression leaving no room for Javier's usual negotiation tactics. "Your 80-hour work weeks are no longer an option." The question of succession planning, once theoretical, became urgent. Elena, groomed for leadership since her graduation, was the obvious heir. Her resume was impeccable: Harvard Business School with honors, executive positions at 2 Fortune 500 companies before joining hit profiles in Forbes and Business Insider, highlighting her innovative approaches to sustainable technology. At 32, she represented everything her father had worked to build: brilliance combined with social conscience and a vision for the future. But during a quiet family dinner at his modernist home, overlooking the city lights of San Francisco, Javier voiced his concerns. "Elena, _my Haj _, your business acumen is extraordinary," he began, his accent still strong after 40 years in the United States. "But I worry about what you don't know." Elena set down her fork, arching an eyebrow. "What don't I know?" The _. Javier's weathered hands wrapped around his water glass, his wedding ring, never removed in the 30 years since her mother's death, catching the light. "You don't know what happens on the ground floor. You've never seen how management treats the people who keep this company running, but don't have the fancy titles or corner offices." His dark eyes, so like her own, held genuine concern. "When I started this company, I was everything: janitor, accountant, engineer. I knew every aspect because I had lived it." He leaned forward, his voice dropping. "I've been hearing things, Elena, whispers about how different our company culture has become from what we built. But everyone puts on a show for the boss and his daughter." The challenge hung between them, unspoken but clear. "What are you suggesting?" Elena asked, already sensing the answer. "Go undercover," Javier said simply. "See our company through different eyes, not as Elena Hernandez, heir apparent, but as someone invisible to power." The plan they developed was audacious. Elena would assume the identity of Elisa Gomez, a newly hired member of the night cleaning crew. No special treatment, no shortcuts, no privilege. She would experience HIT the way thousands of employees did, from the bottom rung of the corporate ladder. Her transformation was meticulously planned. Her designer wardrobe was replaced with simple worn clothes purchased from discount stores. Her sleek straightened hair was allowed to return to its natural curls, then pulled back under a simple bandana. Her manicured nails were cut short, all polish removed, her signature makeup abandoned. The delicate gold hoops that had been her mother's were exchanged for plastic studs. Gone was the polished executive, replaced by Elisa, an unremarkable cleaning woman who would fade into the background of corporate life. Javier arranged her placement through a third-party cleaning service, ensuring no one in HR would make the connection. Her paperwork was handled discreetly, creating a foolproof cover identity. As she stood outside the gleaming HIT headquarters on her first night, a building she had entered countless times through the executive entrance, Elena felt a flutter of anxiety. The employee entrance at the back of the building was dimly lit, utilitarian, devoid of the architectural flourishes that defined the main lobby. She took a deep breath and pushed open the door, stepping into a world she had never truly seen before. Elena's first night began with a hurried orientation. The supervisor, a harried man named Frank, barely made eye contact as he rushed through cleaning protocols and safety regulations. Don't touch papers on desks. Don't enter offices with closed doors. Don't make noise. Don't talk to executives unless spoken to, he rattled off. Clock in on time, clock out when you're done, not before. Any questions? She started to ask about scheduling, but he was already walking away, leaving her with a ring of keys, a checklist of duties, and a cleaning cart. Throughout her life, Elena Hernandez had commanded attention. As Javier Hernandez's daughter, as a Harvard graduate, as an executive VP, people noticed when she entered a room. They made eye contact. They acknowledged her presence. As Elisa the cleaner, she became invisible. Working executives stepped around her without a word, sometimes bumping into her cart without apology. When she entered offices where people were still working, they continued confidential conversations as if the walls were soundproof rather than made of glass, as if she were furniture rather than a person. By the end of her first night, Elena had developed calluses where there had once been smooth skin, and had learned to move with the efficiency of someone who couldn't afford to waste energy. She had also begun to see patterns in how different employees treated the cleaning staff, patterns that would soon reveal the true culture of HIT. Victor Reynolds, operations director, became her primary tormentor almost immediately. At 45, he had risen through the ranks not by innovation or leadership, but through ruthless efficiency and a willingness to sacrifice others for results. To the executive team, he presented himself as dedicated and precise. To those beneath him, particularly the cleaning staff, he was a tyrant whose unpredictable moods made their difficult jobs nearly unbearable. "This is unacceptable," he declared, during his first inspection, holding up a glove with an imperceptible smudge after checking above a ceiling vent, an area not even on the regular cleaning rotation. "You people need to understand that HIT represents excellence in everything." He demanded the entire floor be re-cleaned, forcing the team to stay 2 hours past the end of their shift without additional pay. While Victor's treatment of all cleaning staff was harsh, he seemed to take particular pleasure in targeting Elena. Perhaps it was because she was new and hadn't learned to make herself scarce when he appeared. Perhaps something in her demeanor, a residual confidence that was difficult to completely disguise, triggered his need to assert dominance. The incident with the water cup came after 2 weeks of escalating abuse. Elena had just finished mopping the hallway outside the executive conference room when Victor deliberately stepped onto the freshly cleaned surface, leaving dirty footprints across the wet floor. "This floor is filthy," he announced loudly. "Can't you do anything right? Look at these stains, look at these spots you've missed." Elena glanced down at the immaculate floor, gleaming under the recessed lighting. There were no stains except the footprints Victor himself had just created. "I just cleaned it, sir," she explained politely. "It was dry and spotless before." "Are you contradicting me?" Victor interrupted, his voice dropping dangerously quiet. "Do you think you know more about cleanliness standards at HIT than I do?" Without another word, he poured his water cup over her head, the cold liquid shocking her system as it soaked through her uniform. "Now you have something real to clean up," he said, dropping the empty cup beside her. "And don't leave until it's spotless. I'll be checking personally." That night, as water dripped from her soaked uniform, Elena made a silent vow. Victor Reynolds would face consequences for his actions, not just for what he had done to her, but for the culture of fear and humiliation he had created for the invisible workforce that kept HIT running. After 4 weeks undercover, Elena had gathered overwhelming evidence of systematic abuse, discrimination, and corruption. Victor Reynolds wasn't alone in his cruelty. She had documented Sophia Carter, marketing director, forcing cleaning staff to redo immaculate work multiple times while making increasingly trivial complaints. She had recorded Raphael Jenkins, HR director, dismissing harassment complaints with thinly veiled suggestions that cleaning staff should know their place. Most shocking of all, she had captured Amelia Torres, Senior VP of Sales, physically slapping her when she politely suggested coming back later to clean a conference room. The corruption went beyond abuse. Through careful observation and strategic positioning of her cleaning cart, Elena had documented conversations revealing that these same executives were embezzling funds, selling corporate secrets to competitors, and actively working to undermine Javier's leadership before the succession could take place. The evidence was overwhelming and irrefutable. As the end of her planned undercover period approached, Elena faced a critical decision about how to proceed. Simply presenting the evidence to her father would address the immediate conspiracy but might not solve the deeper cultural issues. A more public approach risked damaging the company's reputation, potentially harming innocent employees in the process. After careful consideration, Elena and Javier developed a strategy for maximum impact and lasting change. Monday morning dawned clear and bright, sunlight gleaming off the glass and steel of the hit tower as Elena arrived in her cleaner's uniform for her final shift in disguise. She had deliberately scheduled herself for the executive floor, ensuring she would be assigned to clean the boardroom before the 10 a.m. emergency meeting her father had called. By 9:45, executives and board members had begun gathering outside the boardroom, expressions confused or concerned about the unexpected session. Javier arrived last, acknowledging greetings with brief nods but offering no explanation. His eyes briefly met Elena's as she mopped near the door, a subtle glance that contained volumes of unspoken communication. "You missed spots on the windows," Victor announced loudly as executives took their seats, "and the table hasn't been properly polished. This is exactly the kind of sloppy work I've come to expect from you people." "I'll take care of it right away, sir," Elena responded, continuing to clean around the room's perimeter as her father called the meeting to order. "I've called this emergency meeting to address serious concerns about the corporate culture at HIT T," Javier began, his tone grave. "Over the past month, evidence has come to my attention suggesting that we've strayed significantly from the core values upon which I built this company." The room fell silent, executives exchanging uneasy glances. "Get out," Victor snapped at Elena. "This is sensitive corporate business." The moment had arrived, the culmination of 4 weeks of humiliation, documentation, and strategic patience. Instead of scurrying away as expected, Elena set her mop carefully against the wall. She straightened to her full height, squared her shoulders, and turned to face the assembled executives with a calm dignity that immediately commanded attention. Looking directly at Victor Reynolds, she spoke in a clear, confident voice that bore no resemblance to Alyssa's deferential tones. "Actually, I think I should stay." "Who do you think you?" Victor began, fury coloring his face. "I think you're the one who doesn't understand the situation," Elena interrupted, using his first name with the casual authority of someone who had every right to do so. With deliberate movements, she removed the bandana that had covered her hair, letting her natural curls frame her face. She took off the plain glasses that had been part of her disguise, replacing them with her designer frames. Finally, she unzipped the gray cleaner's uniform to reveal a professionally tailored blazer underneath. The transformation was electric. Around the table, expressions shifted from confusion to shock as recognition dawned. These executives had all worked with Elena Hernandez for years. They had attended meetings with her, reported to her, discussed strategy with her, yet none had recognized her beneath the disguise of Alyssa, because they had never truly seen the cleaning staff as people worthy of notice. "I am Elena Hernandez, Executive Vice President and incoming CEO of Hernandez Innovation Technologies," she announced, though by now no introduction was necessary. The silence in the room was absolute. Elena tapped a small remote, and the boardroom screen flickered to life. "For the past 4 weeks, I've been gathering documentation on the toxic culture in this company, a culture that contradicts everything HIT claims to stand for." Video appeared on screen, Victor Reynolds pouring water on Alyssa, captured from a security camera angle that showed his face clearly. The timestamp and location were visible in the corner, leaving no room for denial. Victor's face drained of color. That's taken out of context. She was insubordinate. "Assault is assault, Victor," Elena cut him off calmly. "There is no context that makes it acceptable." The presentation advanced methodically through the evidence she had gathered. The executives who had abused their power sat in stunned silence as their actions were displayed for the board to see. By the time Elena concluded her presentation, the atmosphere in the boardroom had transformed completely. The arrogance and entitlement that had characterized the accused executives had crumbled into a mix of shock, fear, and desperate calculation. Victor Hayes, seeing no escape, resorted to desperate pleading. "I didn't know who you were. Please, I have a family, don't let me lose my job." "That's precisely the problem," Elena replied, her voice steady. "You thought it was acceptable to treat another human being that way because you believed they had no power. That's not just a moral failure, it's a leadership failure." The door opened, revealing two security officers. Miss Torres, Mr. Reynolds, Miss Carter, and Mr. Jenkins. Javier addressed them, standing to join his daughter. "You are all terminated effectively immediately. Security will escort you to collect your personal belongings." As Victor was led away, he turned back with one final desperate appeal. 15 years, Javier. I've given this company 15 years of my life." Javier's response was measured but unyielding. "You're right, Victor. 15 years is significant, which makes it all the more disappointing that you chose to use your position to abuse those with less power, rather than to embody the values this company was built on." 6 months later, the transformation of Hernandez Innovation Technologies was well underway. Cultural change didn't happen overnight, but under Elena's leadership, the company had become fundamentally different. Her first official act as CEO had been to establish the Dignity Initiative, a comprehensive program that included significant raises for maintenance and support staff, clear pathways for advancement regardless of educational background, and a zero-tolerance policy for abusive behavior from anyone at any level. She had restructured the company's hierarchy, flattening unnecessary layers of management and creating cross-functional teams where executives worked directly alongside entry-level employees. Most significantly, she had implemented ground-level leadership, a requirement that every executive, including herself, spend 1 week each quarter working in a non-management role. The physical hardships of cleaning work had changed Elena's body, building strength and endurance she hadn't known she needed. The emotional challenges of being treated as invisible had deepened her empathy and sharpened her perception of power dynamics in ways her privileged upbringing and education never could. These changes were visible in how she operated as a leader. In executive meetings, she noticed who spoke and who was interrupted, consciously creating space for diverse perspectives. When visiting departments, she greeted maintenance staff by name with the same respect afforded to directors. Her decisions were informed by a 360-degree understanding of how they would affect everyone in the organization, not just those with titles similar to hers. 1 year after her Undercover journey, as Elena stood at the podium accepting the Inclusive Workplace of the Year award on behalf of HIT, she reflected on how far they had come and how far they still had to go. "True leadership isn't about the power you wield," she told the audience, her father beaming proudly from the front row. "It's about how you use that power to lift others." At HIT, we believe that no one is invisible, that everyone's contribution matters, and that dignity is non-negotiable. She paused, her eyes finding a familiar face in the crowd. Maria, the cleaning supervisor who had shown kindness to Elisa during those difficult weeks, now HIT's director of facilities operations. "My father built this company from nothing," Elena continued, her voice strong with conviction. "But what makes me most proud is that today, we're building something even more important, a place where everyone can bring their full selves to work and be seen, truly seen, for the value they bring." As applause filled the room, Elena thought about the water that had once soaked her uniform, about the humiliation that had burned in her chest, about the people who had looked through her as if she didn't exist. The journey from that moment to this one had changed her forever. It had taught her that the view from the bottom revealed truths invisible from the top, that justice required both compassion and accountability, and that sometimes the most powerful thing a leader could do was to make herself vulnerable enough to truly understand. It was a lesson she would never forget.